Gold just skyrocketed to a new all-time high, but what does that mean for the market? And I'm going to let you in on a little secret about where gold could be possibly going from here. But at first, we've got to acknowledge the gold bug of all gold bugs, Peter Schiff. You guys see him on the thumbnail. He's been right this whole time on what he's doing. Now let's listen into what he had to say here about gold.
2000, early last year, nobody even believed that it was going to go any higher. And you had a lot of firms downgrading the gold mining stocks because they thought gold had peaked. And the entire time gold rallied from 2000 to 3000, investors just expected the metal to fall. Investors are now going to have to come to the conclusion that gold's not going back down to 1500. It's probably not even going down to 3000. It'll probably be at 3500, 4000 before the end of the year. And it's going much higher than that.
Sheesh. Look at that. Gold is going much higher than that. And as we see, gold hits a record high as the U.S. and China trade war intensifies and the dollar weakens. I don't have a Reuters subscription, but you can see that the Trump tariffs caused the Chinese imports to 125%. And we've seen the gold price today still remain near the record highs after just falling slightly a tad on the day-to-day. But what's interesting is that gold generally sends a signal to the market. It tells us what is going on and why we should be looking at gold here. Now, gold tends to give the opinion of the investors. Do they think inflation is over yet? And it seems like the investors are speaking out. They're loving this GIF here, my man Jerome Powell, and one of my favorite websites of all time, govflation.com. You could look at the official CPIs and what they're saying. Look at this, folks. Does this chart look like inflation is over with to you? It looks like to me we're still seeing inflation well over that 10% mark that we had back in November. 10.54, 10.67 in December. And then we had it skyrocket up. Skyrockets in flight. Pew! Afternoon delight. Unfortunately, that's not a good thing, seeing that raise up. Obviously, if you're an investor in gold, seeing this chart might not be the worst thing in the world, right? We've seen gold hit new record highs. We've seen gold significantly outperform than what it has done in previous decades. And I think a big part of that is for a few reasons. We're seeing central banks buy up gold at a record that we have never seen before. One of those central banks being China. And we're going to get into it here in a bit. So stick around to the end of this video as to why the potential of that, people losing faith in the dollar. It's not just a trade war. It's a lot of different things and aspects as well. But let's get back to the point here. We're seeing gold skyrocket up, continue to keep on humming along, and that gold price is sticking along. It smashes record high as bullseye $3,100 amid a trade war terminal. Look, many people were saying a $3,500 gold price would be detrimental to the market. Now we're nearly 10% of a movement away from that. So it's not out of the question that we're going to see $3,500 gold and potentially $4,000, especially with the macroeconomic environment that we're in. That macroeconomic environment includes massive amounts of inflation in the U.S., tariffs, and much, much more. Seemingly a trade war. Everybody is worried about this aspect, right? So gold surges to fresh all-time high as safe haven demand rises ahead of Trump's auto tariff deadline. Despite core PCE uptick, Fed's daily sees 2 cuts in 2025, which is interesting because Donald Trump has come out and said that he's going to fire Jerome Powell if he doesn't cut rates, or he's been threatening it. He's been swinging his weight around as much as possible, and I've been showing this every single live stream so you guys know and love it. But this percent chance of the Fed cutting interest rates has dropped dramatically to 13.2%. So it looks like they're going to remain stagnant or no change here. 86.8%. So this got up to over 50% at one point that they were going to cut. And now it looks like everybody believes Jerome Powell is going to remain firm on this. Now, we'll get into that a little bit more later, but let's dive into back what we're seeing here. The Dixie weakens, the U.S. yields slide, and global tensions mount as Canada and the EU prep retaliation plans. Look, let's be honest here, folks. I love Canada. Look, poutine is okay. I'm not saying it's great. Tim Hortons, not great coffee. I'm not going to lie to you. But I love how much that they love their country. But let's face it, Canadians. Canada doing reciprocal tariffs is not going to do anything for the U.S. It's going to do more harm to Canadians. And the EU, okay, they got enough of them, power in numbers. But at the end of the day, the U.S. has the biggest consumer economy in the world, and it's not even close. All we do is spend, spend, spend here because we've been conditioned with the amount of inflation that we have, right? I mean, if your dollar that you have is going to be worth 2% less at the very least in purchasing power within the next year, you're probably going to want to spend that now while it's worth $1 opposed to worth 80 cents, right? So the biggest consumer economy in the world, programmed to buy, is now being potentially faced with other tariffs, reciprocal tariffs. But with that, right? I mean, we have this 13.2% chance of a cut, even though Trump is very upset and Trump is coming at Jerome Powell. And we're seeing the Dixie fall down below that $1 mark, which isn't great. You don't like to see that. You want to see it above that 100 marks. Wanted to see, the strength of the dollar be as high as possible. So we're looking at the dollar weakening, gold absolutely surging, and the tariffs have everybody worried about the strength of the United States. So, what does that all mean here? It means that gold is probably going to continue to raise up because it seemed the record high breaching that 3,300 mark. So it needs less than 10% in order to hit that 3,500 mark, which everybody was saying was astronomical. Everybody was saying that is something that is absolutely crazy. And we couldn't see that at any time. But now we're seeing it because of Jerome Powell has weighed in on Trump's tariffs. And he said that he didn't like the tariffs. It's caused unnecessary inflation. He said that he expects the U.S. Donald Trump's tariff policy to negatively impact the U.S. economic growth and further fuel inflation. So what did we see? Gold skyrocket. It seems like these guys are at odds, right? It's Jerome Powell versus Donald Trump. Who's going to bend the knee first? It's a real interesting dichotomy that we have here because they both want success for the U.S. economy. But it seems like one guy's like, I'm going to do it my way or the highway. And the other guy's like, you have to do it my way or else. Right? So we're seeing the president really get involved with the potential of a, meddling of sorts here. Trump has even come out and said that he could potentially lower interest rates and conduct QE himself. I don't know how that would work here, folks. But I mean, man, how could one man have all that power, right? But everybody's looking at the tariffs and the potential of this. Is this tariff storm a threat to the dollar dominance? Trump is contributing to undermining the dollar's privileged position, but there isn't an easy alternative for global markets to turn away from the greenback. Of course, is the dollar still all powerful? The fact that they are asking these questions should be troublesome, honestly. Like, when are we seeing people question the U.S. dollar dominance as much as we are right now? And I think it's more of a media attack here on Donald Trump. Obviously, the tariffs are an extreme measure, but as Trump did with the art of the deal, right? He is actually going forward and really trying to strengthen that dollar. And so is the dollar still all that powerful? Look at the Dixie. It fell slightly beneath that $100 mark, but it's still very strong. The one thing that we have to worry about here is the gold backs. The gold price holding very strong and remaining near that record high as it opened today, nearly at its all-time high. It's still floating around there. So we've got to be watching this very closely. We've got to be watching how close we get to the all-time high. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see gold start to skyrocket up to that $3,500 pretty soon. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we see $4,000 by the end of the year, because we are seeing inflation still continue to run up and run up and run up. And it's evident by what we are seeing with CPI, right? They can't even hide it anymore. Okay, we're at 2.4%. EU is cutting rates. They're saying that everything is easing. But if you look at how CPI was previously reported, right, that 2.4%, still probably around 10%, right? We got this 10.67 number here. That's from 2.9. So we're still seeing inflation rise. Real returns that they're reporting are actually negative, even though they're reporting positive. GDP, they're reporting positive growth. In reality, GDP is shrinking and continues to shrink year over year. And the monthly dollar supply is growing, even though they're saying that it's not. So all of these statistics that they are reporting are somewhat showing that everything is strong in the market. And so what is the media essentially blaming at this point? The media is blaming Trump's tariffs, when in reality, a lot of the tariffs that he is implementing, you will see the underlying effects of these months after. You know, you'll see the market react immediately, but the actual effects on the global and, local economies, those are going to be seen in the short term. So how are the markets reacting? We see gold shoot to an all-time high, as I've been saying. The markets are also reacting to now the chance of cutting interest rates in the United States falling drastically. We're seeing that go from 50% in a live stream I did earlier this week, now down to 13.2%. The volatility in the percent chance of us just seeing if the Fed is going to cut interest rates is absolutely astronomical. We've never seen anything like this. And then we've got 58% of foreign exchange reserve together are held by central banks denominated in dollars. But they're worried about that because previously it was 71%. So everybody's moving away from the dollar. But what is Trump doing? He's essentially trying to force the hands of those moving away from the dollar, saying you better use the dollar or else we're going to tariff the shit out of you. We're going to play some hardball with you. And just keep it moving there, right? And so we're going to see gold potentially go much higher than that. The good friend, the gold bug himself, Peter Schiff, always saying this.
You got to buy these gold mining stocks before they really take off. China has the stronger hand, not the United States. China is the surplus nation. They have all the factories. They have the supply chains and the infrastructure, and they have the savings. Our deficit chickens are coming home to roost, and our years of living beyond our means are coming to an end.
See, this is where I slightly disagree with Peter. I agree with him on his gold takes, but I don't necessarily believe China will be able to outsmart the United States here. I'm still very bullish on everything going on. Oh, we got my man Luke Mikic in the chat. I appreciate you, man, saying the most underrated macro channel on YouTube. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, the bell notifications. I'm going to be doing close to daily live streams on this to try to get everything on the macro news going to you guys. Smash the like button, smoke it like Cheech and Chong. And thank you guys all for joining in on another great live stream.